Hello, everyone. This is Peter Grandich. I always like to say these are special interviews, but this one truly is. For 20 years, I had an opportunity to work with professional athletes, 13 of those with the New York Giants players and coaches. And while there, came friendly with a few guys, but none better than my next guest, Jay Feely. Jay, welcome back. See you again, my friend.
Peter, a pleasure and an honor to be on here with you, bud.
Well, I had to reach out to you because I knew after you were done playing when you went into broadcasting, because Dave, my partner who you knew, I said, Dave, he's either going to do financial, broadcasting, or politics. Well, you worked all the way up to be a regular week commentator on CBS Sports doing the Super Bowl. I figured you made it. And next thing I know, you've announced to run for Congress. So you pretty well covered all the things I thought you were going to do. But before we get to your run for Congress, let's start with a little bit about your background.
Well, you nailed all three because I went to Michigan in college. And after college, I didn't get into the NFL right away. So for 2 years, I was a financial advisor. I got my Series 6 and my 7, had my own office in Tampa, and I was working as a financial advisor. Wasn't sure if I'd ever get into the NFL. And then did for those 2 years, finally got into the NFL, kept my licenses for a couple years until I couldn't harbor them anymore, wasn't doing business, and had to let those go. But so I've been a financial advisor. I played in the NFL for 14 years, and then now I'm running for Congress. So you knew better than I did what my life was going to look like. But I grew up in Tampa, went to Jesuit high school. They have a motto there, being men for others. And that had a lasting impact on my life that carries through all the way into why I want to get into politics. They have a big community service requirement at Jesuit each year. And so I started getting involved with Muscular Dystrophy Association, doing their summer camps where you're paired up one-on-one and you help your camper do anything they need for that week. And it's the 1 week where they're free from all their inhibitions. They just get to be a kid. And I just loved watching the joy that they had and the freedom they had when you were with them for that week. It's the week that they lived for. And my wife, when we got married, she came and she was a counselor a few times. And we carried that into our marriage and into our children. We have 4 kids of our own and 2 we've kind of adopted from Haiti. And we've brought my kids to Haiti a number of times. We've taken them to Africa, to Malawi, to work in villages there. We wanted to take them on those trips to try to instill in them the desire to serve and to help people that we had, and then also to show them how lucky they are to live in the United States. When you get into one of those third world countries like Haiti or like Malawi, when it's one of the poorest countries in the world, and your kids see firsthand how these people are living, and then they go home, they have a different appreciation for going to school and getting to drive a car and having food at night on your table every night. And that's what I wanted to instill in my kids, and we've seen that and the impact it's had. They were able to bring a young man from Haiti to live in our home. He was my translator for the first 4 or 5 trips that I went to Haiti after the earthquake. We were rebuilding homes there in Haiti, and we had a feeding program where we fed 100,000 a day. We built a sports complex to try to provide opportunity for the people in Haiti to go to college, to get a scholarship, to get the opportunity for an education. And one day I was sitting with this young man, Wedner Delmont, and I said, D, what are your goals and dreams? What do you want to accomplish? And he said, I want to go to the United States. I want to go to college. I want to get a degree. I want to be a success in business and help my family. And I said, we can do that for you. And so the process of going to get him a visa, student visa, took a couple of years in Haiti to actually get that done. And we got him a visa, and he moved into our house, and we put him into Grand Canyon University, got him in there, and he played soccer, and he got a 3.3 GPA, even though he spoke English as a second language. And, it's funny to watch his perspective of the United States and the opportunities our country gives versus people who grew up here, because, you hear a lot of complaints and you hear people talk, the social justice issues and why we don't have equal playing fields. And in his eyes, America was the greatest country in the world because he could come from Haiti and come from nothing, and he had the opportunity to make something of himself. In Haiti, it didn't matter how hard he worked or what he did. He was never ever going to be able to provide for his family, no matter how hard he worked. I think he averaged, when he was working full time down there, he was averaging a couple $100 a week. I know that because I remember when he left, when we took him and we brought him to our house, I asked him, I said, D, how much do you make a month? Because he was providing for his entire family. He was the oldest, and He was the breadwinner, didn't have a father around to support their family. And he said, I make about $200 in a good month. I said, okay, we can send $200 a month down to your family because I don't want them to suffer because you're up here going to school and chasing your dreams. And we started doing that. But to think of somebody working full time and making $200 a month, and that's what a family of like 8 we're going to survive on, is just unbelievable. But that's the reality in Haiti. And so he comes to college in the United States and he gets fed every day. And a lot of times in Haiti, if he had rice and beans once a day, that was a good day. So when my kids would complain about what my wife made to eat, I would say, hey, go talk to Delma, and he would give them the talk about being grateful for what they have. And he just had an unbelievable impact on my family. But to watch him go through college and to get to realize his dreams, and then he got an internship after college, and they loved him because he loved to come to work. In his eyes, I get to work. He didn't have to work. And so they hired him, and he got a job with Empire Cat, and then he got another job with United Rentals, and then he was able to get married in his own house. And I remember the day that I sat with him after he bought his house on his front yard, and I was like, Delmont, when you and I met, you were homeless. Your home had gotten destroyed in Haiti. Like, think about how far you've come. And the really cool thing for me about that story is, all I did was give him an opportunity. And you can't fix everybody, especially in a country like Haiti, but you can help certain people. And we decided to help that family. His brother's since come to the United States as well and has a job, got a job at Intel working there. We put him through college in Haiti in an engineering school, and he was able to come to the United States, get a job with Intel, and then parlayed that in another great job that he has right now. So just to see these guys take advantage of opportunity and make the right decisions and take advantage, work really hard, that is truly the American dream. It's what I believe in, is equality. And I think that's what we should fight for in Congress, is trying to provide those equal opportunities to everyone. And I don't believe in the idea of equity. I think that's a false nomer, and it creates division. But equality is something we should all fight for. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to run for Congress.
All right, Jay. So life as a kicker, shorter lifespan. You missed 2 or 3, and you had that one game and ended up getting an SNL.
Especially in New York, yeah.
But you basically kicked all the others through, and that's why you had a great career. But, man, you missed 2 or 3. You come in Wednesday, and there's 3 guys kicking field goals looking to replace you. So you know what pressure is. And, of course, you worked your way. Your kids are grown. I just had a chance to talk to your son, who was already out driving me at 8 years old. Now I hear he hits the ball 350 yards. But you suddenly make a decision at this point in your life to run for Congress. And listen, I think the what's it, 6% or 8% of Americans like Congress. The rest can't stand.
It's pretty low. It's historic lows right now, especially for the Democrat Party. But when you look at, I'm going to tell that story because it relates to Congress, about the Giants and my worst game ever. We go out. I'm having a great season. I'm leading the league in like every category. We go out to play Seattle in a late season game for first place in the NFC, and it really had implications on home field advantage as well. And I have end of a game I could ever have. I missed the game winner at the end of the game. We go to overtime, and I missed 2 long kicks in overtime as game winners as well. And then they go down, Seattle kicks the field goal, and they win the game. And it's heartbreaking for me. I can't believe I missed 3 kicks. And I'm in New York playing for the Giants, and they just crushed me all week. Every media outlet, that's all they're talking about. And I don't want to listen to anything. I especially don't want to listen to talk radio. And I'm just trying to get myself right mentally for the next game so that I don't get fired and don't lose my job and have to move my kids. And those are all realities. But you can't let yourself think about the implications of what you're doing. And that's probably the biggest challenge for kickers, is to control your mind. And so the night before the Eagles game, I'm trying to go to sleep, and all of a sudden at 11 o'clock, my phone starts blowing up, and all the text messages are like, dude, they're killing you on Saturday Night Live right now. Saturday Night Live has a skit called The Jay Feely Story, The Long Ride Home, and Dane Cook plays me, and it's all about what it was like to ride from Seattle back to New York on that long plane ride home after missing all those kicks. And so here I am. I go out to play the game against the Eagles. Of course, it goes to overtime again. And of course, field goal again to win it. and they call a timeout to ice me. And during that timeout, the city of brotherly love, they play a montage of my misses up on the Jumbotron to try to get in my head. And I go on and I make that kick, and my career moves forward. Now, the impact that it had on me for kicking was dramatic. You don't know it in the moment. But when you fail as bad as you can fail, and everyone laughs at you and everyone makes fun at you, and Saturday Night Live does a national spoof about you, it's either going to go one way or the other. It's going to crush you, or it's going to fortify you and make you stronger and make you better. And that's what it did for me. And what it did was it took away a lot of that fear of failure. And from that moment on, my next 9 years of my career, I didn't miss another game winner. I had one that was deflected, but I didn't miss a game winner the next 9 years. And I think a lot of that was because I failed as bad as I could fail, and it didn't break me. And so now what do I have to fear? And so that allowed me to just go out and be and play with a joy that I hadn't played with before. I was having fun. If you watched me in pregame warmups, I was like a 12-year-old kid who was let go on the field. You could just do whatever you wanted. I was catching punts. I was catching punts behind my back and flipping them to the other team. I remember messing with Richard Sherman, doing all these trick catches as he's back there just trying to catch the ball and giving him a hard time. And, it was just a joy to go out there and play after that. And my performance got much better. So I took that into the broadcast booth, and then I certainly want to take that into politics. I think we are so blessed to be in this country, and we sometimes forget about that. And sometimes politicians don't talk about that, the hope and joy that we should have for every day. And I think the only way you do that is if you have politicians that don't want to get into office for self-serving measures, that truly want to be a civil servant and that want to get in to help people. And I've been blessed, actually, playing in the NFL for 14 years and then broadcasting for 10 years, that I'm not getting into office to try to make my career in life and try to build my net worth. I'm getting into office to try to serve and to be a civil servant. And I think that's the right way to do it. I think that's the way our forefathers wanted it to be.
Let me just put a dot to the career and then talk to you about the motivation. Two things that I can say about Jay Feely. One, that I remember watching a game play in Denver, and they put up a score. It said Jay Feely 22, Denver 3, because you had kicked 5 field goals and then ran an on-purpose fake field goal to score. So you were the entire 22 points in that game, which made me happy because kickers normally don't get that glory. And then the best thing that was ever said about Jay Feely was by a mutual friend of ours, the great Joe Klecko from the Jets, who went into the Hall of Fame, who said Jay Feely's the only kicker he's ever saw that's also a football player. And that, to me, is a quote to get from Joe Klecko. He didn't even want to sit on the bench with him. So
that's right.
All right.
And Peter, for me, the thing that stood out in my career that meant the most to me was that on a number of different teams that I played on, my teammates voted me as one of their captains. And it was very humbling. And the culmination of, I think, all the work I did in my career for my teammates to look at me and say, hey, yeah, you're one of our leaders. I really appreciated when they voted me to be their player rep, which I was on every team I played on, but that was more for what I was going to do off the field. Whereas the voting me captain was what I was doing on the field and in the weight room. And I appreciated that. That's what meant so much.
So, Jay, I know you've said it in interviews already, and maybe we'll close on this. Your real motivations come from Donald Trump and what happened to Donald Trump. So why don't we close on that after seeing, obviously, the not only one, but 2 assassination attempts. That's really what helped motivate you to run. Am I correct?
Yeah, I had been thinking about it for a few years. My wife and I have talked about a long time. And I was down at Mar-a-Lago a few years ago with Jim Jordan and President Trump. And we hung out after one of the events and watched a UFC fight together. And the 3 of us just sitting on a couch, like 3 buddies watching a UFC fight, talking politics and talking. They tried to get me to run for office then. And I just didn't think it was the right time. I had 2 girls that were still at home in high school. And I didn't want to leave if I got elected and not be there for them through high school, and said no. And then when you go back to Butler, Pennsylvania, and you see President Trump get shot, and you stand up and yell, fight, fight. And to me, that was a huge moment. And he could have easily walked away and said, you know what, they're trying to kill me. I don't want to be in office anymore. I don't need to do this. I have plenty of money. I can go do anything I want, play golf every day if I want, go to all my hotels, travel around the world. I'm a celebrity. I have had my own TV show, like so many successes, and yet he still wanted to fight for the American people. And I started to ask myself, what am I willing to sacrifice for my country? You think back to JFK, when he said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I think all of us should ask that question. It doesn't mean that everybody has to get into politics, but you can get involved in your communities and you can give back to people. And I think too many of us are just, we just focus on ourselves. You look at kids in college and young kids today, and they're so narcissistic and they're only thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about other people and how other people. And for me, I thought how we could help other people was to go into office and to run for office. And Andy Biggs decided in January not to run for re-election. He's the congressman in the district that I live in Arizona, the 5th congressional district. He decided to run for governor. And I met with Andy and I said, hey, are you all in on governor? And he said, yeah, I'm all in on governor, not running for my House seat again. And I said, well, I think I'm going to think about running for it then. And that's when my wife and I really started to pray about it and think about it, and went to DC and met with a lot of people for a few days, a lot of congressmen and their wives. Rebecca could talk to their wives and just kind of see what that experience was like, because I wanted her to be all in on it. I'm going to do it as well. She had to be willing to travel to DC with me. Peter, we had this whole vision of what we were going to do when we were empty nesters. And we built a home 20 years ago up on a lake in Michigan. And when we were empty nesters, we were going to go up there for 4 months of the year and hang out on the lake. And I think both of us just decided it's not time yet for us to hang out on the lake. It's time for us to serve and to try to have an impact for our district and our state, and then also our country.
Well, I'm just going to say to my followers, even though he's not going to be your congressman, I can't think of a better man. This would be the second. You served on my board along with Burgess Owens, who decided to run for Congress and won, and is now a congressman out of Utah. So maybe there's something about working for Pete Grandich that helps come.
There you go. It's lucky charm.
But you also got to hang around with Tom Brady. You're both in each other's wedding party. So you've been around a few more stars than I've been around. But I just want to tell people in all seriousness, and all the athletes I've met, no man has more faith in God, trust in God, the family man, and loves his country than Jay Feely. And Jay, God bless you, because you don't have to be doing this. You've had a great career, both in sports. Your children are grown. They're all doing well. You've had this great experience of changing lives from young men in Haiti. And here you are at this point, and always will be viewed as the only kicker Joe Klecko will ever allow in his house. So good luck, my friend. Bless you, give you regards, and hopefully people who see this can try to help you financially. And of course, obviously, prayers are always in order.
No question. Thank you, Peter. Honor to be on with you. If they do want to support, they can go to jfeelyforcongress.com. You can go on there. You can see all my positions, where I stand on everything, and check out a lot of the interviews that I've done. And then you can support if you want. Peter, an honor. What you do for people, I truly appreciate that. You have a heart for people. You want to serve them, and you want to help them financially. And I'm grateful that you've done that throughout your career and tried to help everybody that you appreciate.
Well, thank you, Jay Feely. But like your former teammate, Jeff Fiegels, you're both happy that I'm both not playing golf.
That's right.
All right, my friend.
Take care, Peter.